Hello and welcome to Gold Patch Notes Rundown, the League of Legends patch analysis by a gold player for gold players. I'm Smalls Fry, your host and guide, and this week we are going through the patch 9.23 notes. This is the preseason notes, as I mentioned, and as you can tell by this long list, this will be a long video, so I will try to go quickly through everything. However, I cannot promise that I'll be able to cut it very short. Anyway, I won't be doing as much in-depth analysis on everything as I would normally like to. So, with that in mind, though, I am just going to go ahead and dive into it. Oh, looks like they do have some updates. Looks like a bug fix. Okay. Oh, okay. That I'll figure out. Okay, anyway. So starting with the, so end of season, people got the rewards, Victorious Atrox, plus the Chroma, all of that. But for season itself, dragons are changing. They're keeping the 4 elements, however, they are adding new effects to them. So there's first of all, the map will transform. And that's what this is about. So, after the second Drake is taken and the third one's announced, after it chooses what the third one's going to be, the Rift will change elements. It will change an element to match that third Drake. Now, the first 3 dragons will all be different types. So, you could get, fire, water, air. You could get mountain, air, water, something like that. All of that. And then the third Drake determines what element all the other dragons will be. And the terrain changes will occur in all 4 of them, all 4 quadrants, so not just centered around the dragon pit. So first you've got the Infernal Rift. It basically burns away some of the terrain, so you get new paths specifically around the buffs and a little bit more open area here. Mountain adds new terrain, so that pops up, some terrain here pops up, and some terrain in front of Dragon Pit pops up, and I'm assuming this is mirrored on the other side. Okay, so 2 new bluffs of rock, okay. Ocean Rift causes a bunch of new plants to grow and expand, so by blue buff, I think that bush expands. They also are adding another bush to the blue buff area. But yeah, note how long this bush is. It goes all the way over here, all the way over there. And then new river brush here, new river brush there. And I think the pixel brush expands. Anyway, and then cloud, so it creates these kind of vortexes that give movement speed buffs. This is the one I'm most excited about, simply because as a Skarner player, getting extra movement speed on top of areas where I have my spires will give me even more extra movement speed, and it's really nice. So that's something just to keep in mind. So, that's the map transformations. Let's see. Yes, they're adding alcoves to top and bottom lanes, so be prepared for those and for potential outplays among those. A good jungler might be able to go in here, dip around, and hide in here while the lane pushes, and I think that will be out of vision. And the lane pushes, and they can pop out right there. So, yes, and this is what I mentioned. So it's the new brush next to blue buff, which is up here. They're calling it the river entrance brush, I guess, or one of them. So Rengar's gonna have a heyday, especially with Ocean Drake. So also another additional thing with the elemental drakes is they have a dragon soul. So it's kind of a end tier objective. So basically the first team to kill 4 dragons gets a dragon soul, and that soul will match with Summoner's Rift. So if mountain occurs, you get the extra terrain, you get the mountain soul. If terrain burns down from Infernal, you get the fire soul, so on and so forth. So Infernal soul causes your next attack to deal it deals AoE damage with a small explosion. and that has a 3-second cooldown. That damage does scale off of your AD, your AP, and your bonus health, so tanks can take advantage of it as well. Mountain Soul gives you a shield similar to Malphite's shield, where if you don't take damage for a certain amount of time, for 5 seconds, you gain a shield that scales off of AD, AP, and bonus health. So again, it's usable by basically everyone on the team. Ocean Soul. When you damage enemies, you heal based off of your AD, AP, and health. So again, useful for everyone. And you restore mana over 3 seconds. So that's actually really nice. Let's see, and you regen with less effectiveness, English, when you are attacking minions and monsters. And then last, Cloud Soul, you get 10% increased movement speed, so this is similar to the old Cloud buff where you get increased movement speed, but you get additional movement speed after casting your ultimate, so this is kind of like old Nimbus Cloak, which is changing. I will get to those in a moment. So then, oh yeah, and then the buffs from elements are changing. So basically, now that you can get up to 4 dragons, potentially you could have a team that gets 3, which would be one of each of different types, and then the other team gets 4 of that type, so they do have to change the scaling. So Infernal, now instead of 10 to 24, it is evened out again. I do remember in preseason they changed it to front load it, so the first dragon meant more to a team. They've gone back, undone that effect, and so now it's just, it scales with numbers as you'd expect. So 5 to 20% AD and AP. Mountain, instead of giving bonus damage to towers and to monsters like Baron and Dragon, you now get bonus armor and magic resist. So a team that's behind that gets a couple mountains won't have to worry about getting burst down as much. They will be able to focus on building damage and not be concerned about the leading team bursting them down. Ocean. So this one, they got rid of the mana regen and they changed the health regen so that it is much higher health regen on the tail end. In fact, you only need 2 Ocean Drakes for it to really start to come fairly even. Then Cloud, instead of giving movement speed, tripled while out of combat, so 9, 13.5, and 18. Now it gives ultimate CDR, and that ignores the CDR cap. Now, this is one that people are concerned about because it means that with 4 stacks and 45% CDR, Lux can ult. Oh yeah, and with Ultimate Hunter, Lux can ult every 7.7 seconds at level 16. However, I do want to remind you that in order to get all 4, it's not going to be the leading team that gets all 4. It is that they have to get 3, and then the other team, the team that's behind, has to get the next 4 dragons, which is going to be very hard to do. It's a struggle. If you've gotten to that point, you've screwed up already. Anyway, so Elemental Drake mechanics. Yes, so I already mentioned this. The first 3 are different types, and the third one determines the type of everything after that. And then they spawn at 5 minutes, and 5-minute respawn until one team has slain 4 drakes. The health is lower for the first 2, and then for the third onward, it is higher. So that is something to keep in mind. Last is Elder Dragon. So first of all, it doesn't increase the effects of everything else by 50%, so those high numbers later on you don't have to worry about, right? That doesn't suddenly become 60%, which would be absolutely broken. The burn damage now goes up based off of time, not off of how many drakes you have. The burn doesn't reveal people, and then it doesn't get increased by the second time you take it. The effect also has a new execute. So 20% health or lower, your enemies will get executed by the next damage you deal to them. It can't execute through stuff like Kindred's ult. Zanya's will save them, stuff like that. But it'll execute on the next damage you deal after those effects, if they are below 20%. Let's see. Oh yeah, Elder and Baron buff are both 3 minutes now, instead of Elder being 2.5. And then the spawn is just every 6 minutes after one team kills 4 elementals, which is why that's why one team has to get 3 and the other team has to get 4 in order for those buffs to stack up quite so high, is simply because of once team gets 4 dragons, all that will spawn are Elder Dragons. So you could potentially have Elder Dragons spawning at 20 minutes in, if one team is consistent about being there at dragon spawns and taking them immediately. So, I do want to make a note about this. This does sound completely broken, right? It executes somebody if they fall below 20% health and you damage them. It's supposed to be. Elder buff is supposed to be one of those things where a team is so far ahead that they just need to end the game. It's a game-ending tool. So, complaining about, oh, this is broken, it's a massive execute. The whole reason that Riot put it in there is so that decided games will end quicker. However, if you can prevent the Elder from spawning for long enough, you can stall out a game, which is why they have the new way of determining when it spawns. So theoretically, it can go past 35, 40... you could have an hour-long game with no Elder Dragon buff spawning if people aren't taking Elemental Dragons. Anyway. Oh, did not want to click on that. So, that's enough about Elder Dragon. Just know that if your enemy gets it, getting to low health is a death sentence. So, keep that in mind. Yeah, there is a half-second delay, so you can Zanya's it if you are fast enough. So then Baron buff is simply being reduced from 3.5 to 3 minutes. And then last, they have changed the visuals of those buffs. So red and blue buff now have kind of a more like artistic swirly effect. This is just the burn from red buff. So then this one is Elder Dragon buff, this one's Baron buff, and then this is if you have all of them, plus the Dragon Soul, which I'm not sure how that's indicated, to be honest. Oh, okay, so see the little fire icon? That means they've got Fire Drake Soul. So that icon will be dependent on which dragon they have. Personally, I don't find that a whole bunch clearer, at least not at a glance, but I think that's because you start seeing them meld and mix, and I really would have preferred to keep them separate like they were previously. Okay, so then one last neutral objective here. Rift Herald, it spawns earlier, and it has a respawn timer. Now, with 6 minutes, it does mean that unless you are somehow able to take it instantly as soon as it comes up, it's not going to spawn another time. Actually, no, it actually can't, because it'll despawn 30 seconds before that next one. So, something to keep in mind is that early game, top lane priority should be on getting that Rift Herald. Also, Herald's health is lower, or at least lower early. It's 500 higher late. That's not a big deal. And then it attacks slower, so you can navigate to behind Rift Herald to hit the eye before it actually attacks. And then when you summon it, first of all, you can only pick it up. You only have 20 seconds to pick it up instead of 40, so they cut that time in half. It channels faster, and the level of Herald is based on when you pick it up, not when you use the eye to drop Herald. And then here, the health of Herald has dropped fairly significantly, except for at later levels. But again, that level is determined by when you pick it up. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, the damage to turrets is changed just a little bit. It's basically based on level again. And it damages itself for a lot more. So that's something to keep in mind, is that Herald isn't going to be as good for sustained pushes, but it's going to be good for finishing off a tower or starting a tower push on a single tower. Okay, so more about top lane. So solo experience goes up a little bit per minion. Now this doesn't seem like much, right? It's less than half for casters, it's 1 for cannons, it's almost 2 for melees, so melees actually stack up quickly. But that's the point, is that it will stack up, right? If you have 3 melees per wave, that means 6, that means an extra 12 per minute on top of anything else that you take. And that's just for melees, by the way. Shared experience has gone down very slightly. This is the experience total, and it gets divided evenly by the number of people there. That's something to keep in mind, right? So if it's you and your support, you each get 37.7. From melees, casters give basically half of melees, and cannons, it's 2 less apiece. Again, that will stack up. Something to keep in mind. And then turret plating. So instead of just having 25 extra resistances, I think per plate, I can't remember how that worked out. Now, the resistances go up per person nearby, right? So while plates are up, if you have a third person, the tower gets 35 more armor. If you've got a fourth, it's got 70 more, and if you've got a fifth person, if all 5 are there, it's 105 more armor and magic resist on the turret when plates get destroyed. Which means if a junglers, if you gank bot lane, or if you gank top lane with your mid laner who roams, one of you has to leave. And I would recommend that it is you junglers, because you could start looking for vision to secure something like Dragon or Herald, depending on which side you're on. But again, if you've got 3 people pushing, one of you should leave, because you're actually going to slow down the push by being there. Or at least you're most likely to, especially at early levels. Then here, Doran's shield. Oh yeah, so they increased the health region that you get. You get more health, and it is faster. However, it is less effective on ranged users, so 66% effective means it isn't nerfed for ranged users. And then if AoE damage over time, or some sort of a proc effect causes it, then the healing is also reduced. So, mainly a top lane change. This does nerf the item a little bit for AD carries who used to take it if they were going into a losing matchup and they knew about it. Also, top lane should accelerate a bit more, as will mid lane, so bot lane won't have as much influence over the game. If you have a bot lane that is losing and the enemy bot lane is hyper farming, it's not as much of a concern. You still want to shut that down, but they're not going to accelerate quite as quickly. Meanwhile, if you get your top and mid laners ahead, they will be able to accelerate that advantage. So jungle pacing, we're actually halfway through this, surprisingly. I guess the big items were there. Okay, so next we have jungle pacing. This is more of my specialty. So they're trying to bring back a bit more of a farming playstyle. Season 9 has been a gank-heavy meta for most, if not all, of the season. So here they are making a few changes. First of all, your first camp gives more bonus experience, gives 45 more, and you won't get bonus experience if you are behind. So it used to be that you get 50 experience per level you were behind the monster, but that's no longer going to be the case, so there's not catch-up experience. If you have a lead in jungle and you are able to steal the enemy jungler's camps and all of that, and get just a few level lead, they won't catch up as fast just by farming. So if you are behind, you do have to adopt that gank-heavy playstyle once again. That is something to keep in mind. Catch-up experience is gone. First camp you take gives more experience. They have also decreased the spawn timers for small camps, so that's your Krugs, your Raptors, your Wolves, and Gromp. Those will spawn 30 seconds faster, which means you can farm more heavily. They added respawn timers if you had vision of the camp. And then the buff respawn timers now simply turn yellow 15 seconds before instead of 20 seconds before. Again, something to keep in mind. Let's see, Krug's. Krug's experience is cut, and they got rid of the first clear penalty for that. So they got rid of the 30 experience penalty, and the gold they gave is cut by 5. Wolves go down by 20, and their gold goes down by 14. Gromp, so basically Gromp is the only one that really got buffed. Everything else got nerfed. Now the reason for this is so that in your first clear you can do a buff and 2 small camps and hit level 3. This does accelerate early game ganks, in my opinion, simply because you are going to more easily have your kit to make those ganks. However, late game, because they have cut the experience overall, right, this 20 XP buff is only enough to overcome this, whereas these two are still cuts. It does mean junglers who power farm won't get as much experience per clear, but they can clear more often because of this change. Something to keep in mind, power farming is going to require more tight rotations. It's going to be a full clear back, whereas getting a gank or a skirmish in will throw off those rotations and potentially reduce your experience. So I won't necessarily say power farm junglers are stronger, but I will say that if you're power farming, you have to almost be dedicated power farming. So pressure junglers who can clear and gank well are still going to be obviously the kings, because everyone wants a jungler who can gank well. But power farming is an option, as is ganking, especially if you fall behind. Let's see, what is next? Lethality items. Yes, they are changing these because right now it is currently people build Duskblade and Youmuu's and they ignore Edge of Night. So they are changing these up similar to how they did to mage items. Was that the beginning of this season? That was 2 seasons ago or something like that. It was a while back, right? Back when they added in Ludens and GLP and they changed Archangel Staff, right? Now they're changing AD assassin items. So first, Duskblade has more AD. Everything else is basically unchanged, except they got rid of the Blackout passive. It's no longer going to stop wards from seeing you, and you don't clear wards instantly, right? The point of this is that it's the high AD, high burst item that you get. I still think this is going to be the ¡1 item for AD assassins. Ghostblade next. The only thing that really changed is that it ignores unit collision. You are ghosted when you're using the active portion of it. So I still see this as being the primary item for champions like Talon or Qiyana who want to shove lane and roam, especially very early. So you get this first, and that plus 40 out of combat movement speed lets you roam down to bot lane or top lane, get a gank off, get pressure off, and get an advantage. That hasn't changed at all. Edge of Night. Let's see. This is more expensive, so they reduce the cost down to be more in line with the other two. The AD has gone down, the lethality has gone down, but the health has gone up, and they changed it. So instead of having an active that you have to channel, it now has a passive that is just like Banshee's Veil. And their reasoning for this is that it wasn't taken much on basically anybody, but the spell shield's going to be easier for them to work with. Plus, by making it less expensive, it's a more appealing option. Basically, it's the defensive option for a lot of assassins now. They don't have to go Black Cleaver. They can now look at Edge of Night and get a spell shield as well as a bit more AD, although for less health. Also, they get lethality for it. Okay, Sanguine Blade. This is the broken item from what I have heard. So, let's see. The cost of it is 100 more than everything else. Meh, whatever. Build path, it's Dirk, Vamp Scepter, and 1,000 gold combined cost, which is relatively high compared to the others. 50 AD, you get 10% 10 lethality and 15% lifesteal. However, the passive is really what's making it broken. It's while you are near one or fewer visible enemy champions, so that is either while you are alone or while you are 1v1 in lane. You gain 8 more lethality, so that brings that up to 18, in line with the other two, basically. As well as you get bonus attack speed, and it decays over 3 seconds if someone else starts coming too close. Again, that is only on visible enemy champions. Someone else theorized that you could use this to sneakily check brush as you're approaching it. That will not work. It does have to be someone who is visible. But this is still an absolutely broken item. Top laners love this. Junglers love this for their clears, because it's not if there's one enemy. If you're in a 1v1, it's if it's one or fewer, which means you get the lethality and you get the attack speed while clearing your jungle, while you are shoving the lane after your opponent has backed, and while you're taking the tower before they get back to lane. So this is an absolutely broken item. I expect to see this changed to exactly one enemy at some point. And then I expect to maybe see the attack speed get nerfed. Still, if you are a top laner who can use the burst, 100% you need to pick up this item. It is the split push item, and it is almost certainly the AD assassin jungler item to get immediately. Heck, I might even say skip warrior, build Sanguine Blade first, and then pick up warrior, because the AD isn't much worse. The lethality helps out. The lifesteal is really nice for clears, and that's just disgusting. Okay, we're gonna move on. Umbral Glaive. So this is the blackout item. This has taken the old Duskblade passive. So basically, when you spot a ward, you can black it out. You can so traps you kill instantly, and you deal triple damage to wards. Note, control wards will still take 2 hits because you deal 3 with 1 hit and then you finish it off. Anyway, the AD is in line with the previous 2 options. Let's see, Serrated Dirk, Longsword, and 600. So it is much cheaper than the other items for lethality, but it gives less lethality. 10% CDR, I do believe, is in line with these 2. It is. Okay. So this is basically the cheap option. I could see this being picked up by Talon next after picking up the Ghostblade, because it means now he can roam without worrying about vision. So we'll see how other assassins pick that up. Again, I could see that on Kiana. I might see it on Zed if you're a roam-heavy Zed player. I mean, really, that's just how AD assassins should be played, right? Is shove lane, get an advantage there, and roam and pick up a kill and give advantages to your side lanes. I don't play mid lane much, it might be evident, but as far as I know, that's the basic play style. Moving on, sorry for that. Oh yeah, and then Serrated Dirk, they got rid of this. Basically, you don't deal extra damage if you kill a minion and then use an ability on an enemy, just because I guess it was a little strong for the price. Let's see, support items. This is another one of the big changes. So I'll take a few minutes to go over this. But so first, support items still have 3 tiers, but they upgrade for free. So you just spend 400 on your starting item, and then you gain gold through the abilities, or through the item's passives. Let's see, you get more stats, and you get 3 ward charges, sorry about that, for tier 2. And then tier 3, you lose the gold gen passive that you had, but the stats are increased by a good amount, I guess, and the ward charges goes up by 1. However, They have an anti-poaching thing that basically, if you are support, you cannot power farm. I don't know if this will still affect the tier 3, but this is something to mention that supports cannot power farm, so just keep that in mind. Power farming will decrease the gold you get from minions, so this is similar to the anti-funneling tactics that they added a season or two ago, like onto jungle items. Anyway, so for Spell Thief, it gets nice new icons. Second, so it has the tribute passive now, so it's 15 gold, and you gain a charge every 10 seconds, up to 3 charges, no matter if you're on stage 1 or stage 2, tier 1 or tier 2, I mean. Oh yeah, and the gold gen doesn't pause if you kill a minion or a monster. That's something to keep in mind. It's just you can't power farm as per the previous nerf. So yeah, doesn't give mana regen. It does give health. Also AP is cut. What else? And once you earn 500 through it, the item upgrades. So basically, rather than giving mana regen, it gives health and it gives less AP. I'll actually do a quick breakdown of these afterwards, but that is a change to note. So then Frostfang now gives more health, less AP than it did before, but still an upgrade from Spell Thieves. English is hard. Okay. So then it doesn't give mana regen, it doesn't give CDR. The gold regen, or gold generation, has gone up a bit. I don't know if that... Through tribute. Okay, so never mind. That doesn't affect this. When it upgrades, you do get 3 stealth wards immediately. So that's something to note, is that you will immediately be able to ward without having to spend money to upgrade this. So you'll be able to spend money on other upgrades or other items and still get your wards as you need as the support. And then 1,000 gold total, so that's 500 minus, or 1,000 minus 500, extra 500 through this, and it upgrades it to Shard of True Ice, which then has much higher AP. Look at that jump from 35 to 60. Health is lower than before. Also doesn't give mana regen or CDR. Gold per 10 is up, but by this point it shouldn't matter. And stealth wards you have 4 charges. Honestly, that's not a big buff. The main buffs are really... Oh, really? That's the only buff. Never mind. So I shouldn't say buffs. The main buff is that you get more AP. So if you are a poke support or an enchanter, someone like Nami or Lulu, or someone like Vel'Koz or Xerath, this will be much better on you simply because of that. But you will need something else to regen your mana. We can get to that in a moment. Okay, Spectral Sickle. So this is basically the AD version of Spell Thieves. So you get some AD, a little bit of health, gold regen. Tribute is the same. Little bit more AD, same amount of health as up there. Same, and then everything here is the same. You get stealth wards, all of that, and then here it's a lot more AD, same amount of health as above, same gold regen, same wards. Fairly self-explanatory. This is what you'll see on someone like maybe Thresh, although he might like another item that we'll look at below in a moment. Pike will love this. Senna will absolutely love this, right? Stuff like that. Where if you are a poke champion, you can pick this up and it will... If you're a poke champion based on AD, you can pick this up and still use it. Actually, I could expect to see maybe support Ashe make a comeback based off of this. Although that will be a low elo cheese thing, maybe. I don't expect it to be common, but I expect this will make stuff like that more viable. Anyway, Relic Shield. Relic Shield is changing. So, they've simplified it a lot. It's while you're near somebody, minions below half their health will get executed. Ranged champions, it's 30%, but that's still not too bad. And it grants you and your ally the kill gold. Effects recharge over every 45 seconds, max 3 charges. This is a solid nerf, in my opinion. The 45 seconds, I would expect to see that get changed to 40 or 35 in the future. It's just that's way too slow, especially for the tier 2. But moving on, Relic Shield gives less health, but it also gives 5 AP. And we'll see the other one gives something else as well, and then we'll get to that summary, and it'll make sense. Anyway, the gold per 10 has gone up. It keeps at spoils, and then it upgrades at 500 gold. And that is gold through killing minions, right? So if you take the cannon, which is, you know, what, like 90 gold at late, that's a big jump. But once you've jumped, you hit Targon's Buckler. Used to be Targon's Brace. So the health goes down. The AP you get from it is higher than Relic Shield. You don't get that health regen, though. Your gold per 10 is increased to 3. And then this is the same as before. Here you get the stealth wards as the other 2 support items that were mentioned to get. And you get, then you upgrade at the same threshold. Then here, Bulwark of the Mountain is the 3rd upgrade. Less health than before. Still gives AP, or gives AP from its previous one, but it is more AP. However, note that that is still less than the 60 you get from Shard of True Ice. Although 150 versus 300 health, so this gives 150 more health. That's a ruby crystal. And then no CDR reduction, no health regen, higher gold per 10, and you get 4 wards. So next is the other new support item. So this one is Steel Shoulder Guards, Runesteel Spalders, Paladins of Whiterock. So, health and AD. Other than that, it's the same as Relic Shield. So notice that they have 2 items that give high AP, low health, high AD, low health, and these have Tribute. So this is good for if you're going to be poking and skirmishing often. Here they have higher health and lower AP, and here they have higher health and lower AD. So these are better on champions like Leona, Taric, Nautilus. Probably Thresh will actually go for the Steel Shoulder Guards. All of that. So your tankier champions, or the ones where you're not certain, those will take one of these 2 options depending on AP or AD scalings. And then last, they are getting rid of Ancient Coin Line. They decided it had too much overlap with Spell Thieves on being more of a... so it was a caster item, but it was more of the like casual, laid-back, defensive caster item, rather than I want to be aggressive and poke, and you take it if you can't execute very well. So say you're Thresh, you know, Ancient Coin. So too much overlap with the other 2, so they got rid of it entirely and added in 2 new support items with clear definitions. And then, okay, next support item is going to be Shirelia's. They've reduced the cost. They've changed the construction cost. Let's see, went from Kindle Gem, this, and this. Okay, so what did they remove? It doesn't give AP, and it doesn't give movement speed. So that was from Aetherwisp. So now, they've actually completely changed the mix-up. Okay. Sorry, I had to reread that. So, yeah, heal and shield power plus 10%. Health regen plus 100%. So, this comes from Forbidden Idol. This comes from Crystal Embracer. Other than that, it keeps the unique active. which has a wider range. And okay, that's just noting that again. Okay, so it's not going to be as good on mage supports as much. I used to see some people take it on Fiddlesticks, where you cast R and then you pop Shurelya's and you run at people. That's not going to work as well because I got rid of the AP. However, the health went up, and the health regen went up, as well as heal and shield power. So I can see this being a great item on Thresh, Taric, let's see. Why can't I remember his name? Rakan. There we go. Rakan will absolutely love this item even more. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Not as good on mage supports, better on tanky supports who won't engage. Give me 1 second while I drink some tea. Okay. So, next, crit items. So this is your ADC items. So they've changed the way the energized passive works. The passive from Kerchi's Shard, which would build into those items. So the damage stacks rather than it just picks whichever one is highest, so you get all of those effects. You get more charges from moving around, but less from attacking, and the effects work on turrets, so crit items are now extra good for pushing turrets. So Storm Razor went up in cost. The combined cost went down because they added in Cloak of Agility and got rid of the Longsword, so the AD goes down, but it gets crit chance from Cloak of Agility. The attack speed went down. The energized damage went up, and that is something that they actually mention here. It's been standardized to 120 on each item, so I'm not going to mention that as much. I'll just briefly mention standardized. And then here, let's see, the slow it gives, it's a larger slow, but it lasts much shorter, so it's going to be more obnoxious for a much shorter period of time. And then last, it doesn't amplify the other energized effects, because now that everything stacks, increasing those by 35% would be a little absurd. So, I'm not familiar with ADC items, but I could see this being a good alternative, or actually even a good addition to Infinity Edge. You get IE first, Storm Razor second, and then you pick up your next crit item. I could see that being very good. Anyway, moving on, Rapid Fire Cannon. It's been standardized. They got rid of the effect where it causes the energized effects to work on turrets, because that's how energized works now, just in general. And it doesn't increase energized charge rates. However, you do get extra damage on that auto attack, and you get the increased range, so keep that in mind. Let's see. Oh, actually, they reduced it late. I didn't even notice that until I glanced at that. Is that the same for here? No, that just went up. Okay, Static Shiv. Static Shiv, the damage from that lightning proc has been standardized. It bounces more, though, so it is much better for wave clear, but it can't critically strike. And honestly, that's a good thing, because the energized damage, assuming that follows all of the bounces, more power than... Okay, yeah, so if you have all of these items, then that damage, 7 bounces times 360, that's pretty significant. So that is something to keep in mind. It doesn't crit. I don't think people got it because of those crits, but whatever. So yeah, Storm Razor, in my opinion, is a much better item, because it gives crit chance, so I'm expecting to see more crit ADCs pick that up. Static Shiv is still the wave clear item, and this one is no longer just... okay. So I guess people still just kind of picked it up mainly for the extended range, but then I guess you also pick it up because it causes your effects to charge faster. So that doesn't work anymore. I expect this to be actually kind of a big nerf, because this, I think, was a bigger effect than this, or than range. We'll see. We'll have to see. Again, I don't know ADCs. I don't know ADC items as well. Then Kirsch's Shard cost goes up, but the damage it gives goes up as well. Um, feels more like you're starting out of the energized path when you pick it up. So it's now no longer one of those things that you get it just because, oh, I have to get it as a component. It's actually a decent early game item. I could see someone picking this up instead of Zeal first, simply because of that plus 80 damage. You move down lane, that first auto, extra 80, that's basically doubling your auto damage early. Plus it procs on towers, so as you're attacking, you'll take towers faster, whereas I don't think crits work on towers. I might be wrong on that. Anyway, speaking of crit, these two items, Brawler's Gloves, got removed. They streamlined everything down to just Cloak of Agility, which now has extra crit chance. It goes from 20 to 25%. That does mean you need to save up the, I think it's 850 or is it 800 for Cloak of Agility rather than just picking these up for 400. I'm a little sad to see this go. I really liked the fact that there were 400 gold items that you could then pick up instead of having to save up for your next back. I really wish they had maybe even just reduced this and made it build into Cloak of Agility. Similar to what they did with Ruby Crystal and Giant's Belt several seasons back. Those two used to be completely unrelated, and Giant's Belt was just, here, it's 1,000 gold. You pick it up and you gain a bunch of health. They made Ruby Crystal build into it, and now it's much more convenient for tanks to have more diverse build paths, and I would have liked to see that here. Then again, I don't know what else is built into other than Zeal, which Zeal is also changing. Zeal gets more crit chance. The price goes up by 200, but the combined cost goes down simply because this is more expensive, so you're still going to have to wait a bit. Anyway, the attack speed goes down, and they said that simply so that they wouldn't have to raise the cost too much more, and unchanged movement speed. And then here, Phantom Dancer didn't have room for another crit component, so they changed it to Dagger and Zeal plus 900 rather than Dagger, Zeal, and Brawler's Glove. So, there we go. Crit items got changed. I'm not sure if it's for the better or for worse. I expect ADCs to pick this up more and this up a bit less. This is a viable early item because for 700 you get a very nice effect versus having to spend double that for Zeal. Removed items. Yes. These four are the main ones that they removed. So Spear of Shojin, way broken, especially on champs like Jax and Renekton. Jax basically became, unkillable because you couldn't auto him, but due to his E having constant uptime, but he'd just constantly auto and cause that cooldown to go down. Renekton was somewhat similar in that he would just perma-stun people, dash, Q, perma-stun, dash, so on and so forth. ZZ-Rot, nobody really picked it much. Also wanted to note, it's still an ARAM. So, Jax is still good in ARAM, or still broken. Let's see, ZZ-Rot. So, they got rid of that and moved the name to here. They do like keeping names for stuff. So yeah, ZZ-Rot, and then Ohmwrecker got removed because nobody even remembered that item existed except maybe Trick2G, who took it when he was tower diving people on Nasus. So Turrets had a passive called Penetrating Bullets, and I don't remember what that was. That's been renamed to Ohmwrecker. And then last Raptor Cloak got removed because these were the only two items that used it, and with no other purpose, there's no reason for it to be around. That plus they cleaned up items from the item set editor. Okay, next is rooms. Rooms. Wow, I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. Kleptomancy. Removed. Omnistone. So basically it is a... if you remember old Unsealed Spellbook where you could change your... you could change your summoner spells when you backed. This is somewhat similar, except you get a random keystone, both when you back and every few seconds after using the previous one. So if you've got Electrocute and you land 3 damaging abilities, proc Electrocute. After 7 seconds, is it 7 seconds or... No. I'm looking to see where it is. Oh, 8 to 4 seconds after using the last. That is worse on ranged champions. Note that. So yeah, you proc the previous one, and then you get a new one after 8 to 4 seconds, which means you can go back into the skirmish with something completely new, and the cooldowns are reset. So you use Electrocute, and then you immediately get Press the Attack, and then you immediately after that you get Grasp, and then you get, Glacial Augment, something like that, right? So it's not reliable. A lot of people don't think it's really good right now. Basically, the only reason to take it is to teach new players about the other keystones. We'll see how it progresses. It's definitely going to need an update so that then it becomes more useful. But then again, Unsealed Spellbook has been pretty unused since it got changed, so we'll see. Next, Conqueror. This is one of the good changes to see. Conqueror no longer deals true damage. The healing has been changed. This is something to note. So it's 15% of post-mitigation. So after armor and magic reduction have reduced the damage. So anybody with 100, if you're damaging anyone with 100 armor or MR or more, you will heal for less than Conqueror used to previously. That is definitely something to keep in mind, is that it is not as good if someone builds resistances. Combined with this, it is no longer a pure anti-tank keystone. This, I don't think, has killed it. Actually, no, it certainly hasn't killed it, because mages like Cassiopeia and Ryze are now actually really good at using it. As well as some other ranged champions, probably. Max stacks goes up. Melees get more stacks, so they only have to deal damage 5 times, as before. Ranged champions have to deal twice as much. That's why Cassiopeia and Ryze are the main ones to pick it, because they have low cooldown abilities. They're the machine gun mages. So you're definitely more likely to see that. Actually, I think right now we're seeing a lot of Ryze taking Conqueror, because he stacks it so fast, and then he also takes Presence of Mind, which has changed, and he has infinite health and mana. Let's see what's next. Oh yeah, the Adaptive Force goes up. Stack duration, so it doesn't fall off as quickly for ranged champions. That's why Ryze and Cassiopeia can take it. And the Adaptive Force has gone up significantly, especially late game. So that's something to keep in mind, that at level 18, someone's going to get 50 extra AD just for fighting you. Now, that is temporary, but that's still 50 extra AD or AP is a lot. Aftershock. I'm just going to move on because this is getting lengthy. Aftershock gives fewer base resists, but the resists scale more with your bonus resists, so it is better on tanks. The damage you deal is scaled up a little bit more early flat. However, it relies more on bonus health, so again, more geared towards tanks. The cooldown is lower though, which is really nice, and then they fixed a bug with the resistances lasting too long. So this isn't as good as on bruisers anymore. Champions like Vi or Skarner, who could take it, where their build had a decent amount of health, but not much in the way of resistances, and they had hard CC, now can't take that as an option to give themselves the resistances and sustain through fights. So we'll probably see Conqueror taken more often, or something more like Press the Attack. We'll see how that works out, but I don't see Bruisers taking this as much, just because of the reductions. Okay, Presence of Mind. I'll get through this one quickly. So now instead of restoring some mana and refunding some ultimate cooldown, you restore mana, and you increase your max mana by 100, up to 500, so you just have to proc it 5 times. Or your max energy by 10, up to 50. This one is one that people are saying is going to be broken on Assassins, because champions like Akali and Zed get an extra ability cast. Lee Sin, all of his abilities are 50, so if he gets 5 takedowns, suddenly he has an extra ability that he can cast, and he's, assassins are built around or balanced around depleting their energy reserve very quickly. So I want to see how this goes. I don't think it's going to be as broken as some people say, because Akali, for instance, it's 80 energy to cast her Q. Whereas Zed, all of his abilities are less than 50, except I think his W, which is 55. So I don't think that's going to be as big of a deal. We will have to see, though. Nimbus Cloak. No longer useless on Skarner, because now instead of ult cast, it's on summoner spellcast. The movement speed does depend on what summoner spell you use. So longer cooldown ones will give more movement speed. This one actually might bring back a weird Hecarim build that I saw several seasons ago, back when you could still buy enchantments on boots. Hecarim top. First back, you buy Home Guard, or you buy boost with Home Guard, and you teleport back to tower, and you still have that Home Guard bonus, and you run down your opponent in lane and kill them really quickly. So I could see that kind of working. Hecarim's also going to love it just because he can cast Ghost at the last second to get that extra movement speed and really go fast and really just smash people. Let's see. Ghost is 25%. Okay, that's less than I thought. And then Smite, Aram's Mark, and Dash. This one is going to be obnoxious as hell, and I really hope they remove it. That's going to be broken. But yeah, 15% movement speed. But Zoe already gets extra movement speed, I think, from her W. So the fact that she gets extra movement speed is disgusting. Let's see, champions. Yeah, so champions, they're not doing many champion changes. This is preseason. It's more about the rift and the map and the game in general, not balancing champions. So those will be tuned up in the coming patches. But here, she doesn't get double stacks on Aram because that was a little bit too broken. Let's see. Oh, they got rid of that. Okay. So yeah, just because Spectral Sickle is around, they don't need this passive. I don't know why they put it in anyway. They knew this was coming. They could have just... I guess they released her on the last day of Worlds, but still. This seems a bit useless. Shouldn't have been done. Twisted Treeline Sunset. I am sad about this. I played a bunch of games with some friends on the last day of Twisted Treeline's availability. I did get some nice clips from those, and I will be sharing those with you guys later. I hope to actually edit together a montage rather than just pasting a bunch of 10-second videos. I haven't checked since the new season. I actually haven't logged in, haven't had time, but I do believe I got all 3 icons overall because I've been playing it not fairly exclusively, but I've been playing a lot more Twisted Treeline than most. So I will be very sad to see this go, especially since it means that the only short game mode is ARAM, unless you want to do bots. Riot, I know you're not going to watch this, but please, add in something that gives us a short game mode for if we don't have time for a full Summoner's Rift pick and ban phase plus game, because I don't know how things are going to go with the new dragons and the map pacing and all of that, but I doubt that we're going to see average game time go down to 15 to 20 minutes like we have with Twisted Treeline. Twisted Treeline meant I could get a game in half an hour and be done. Whereas, now that it's gone, if I want a short game, I have to play ARAM or a bot match, and I don't want to do if I don't want a random champion, and I don't want to play on spots, I'm just screwed. So please, add in a short game mode. Short game modes are less frustrating in general, because if you're trapped in the game, it ends faster. And that happens way too often where you're trapped and can't finish, so... yeah, so that's really my big gripe. If Riot hadn't ignored the mode for 3 years before making this decision, I don't think it would have had to be made. But as it is, it's gone now, but it needs a replacement. moving on, Essence Emporium. Basically, you can spend your blue essence on, icons, chromas, special skins, stuff like that. Bug fixes. This is the only one I care about. Finally, this bug is absolute crap, right? If you're dead and you move the map around with the mini map, when you respawn, the next time you hit space to center the map on yourself or center the camera on yourself, it becomes locked. And it's not like you just hit the unlock camera button and it moves. You have to click on the mini map and move it around in order to unlock it, which is incredibly frustrating. So I really hope that actually did get fixed. Otherwise, I'm somewhat upset. Let's see. True damage skins got updated. Let's see. New skins here. This one looks kind of meh in-game from what I've heard, but this one looks pretty sick. I don't think they needed another prestige skin, but whatever. Why can't I just... There we go. Hit escape. I mentioned this at the beginning, and that's it. Alright, I apologize for the length of this video. I mentioned that it was a lot of changes. I even reviewed these beforehand, so I knew what changes I wanted to spend time on. But I completely forgot about the crit items before doing this, so I spent too much time on those. So I do apologize for the length of this video. I apologize I couldn't do much analysis. However, this is also 2 days late. So by now, people have already gone out and figured out what does and does not work. So I really do hope that the video was satisfying despite the lateness, despite the length of it. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you would like to see more analysis of. I'd be willing to do individual videos on individual sections here, especially my thoughts after playing the Rift a bit. So please, let me know how I did. Let me know what I can do for you. With that in mind, I think that's all I have. So, speaking of getting out to the Rift, I hope to see you guys all out there. I want to hear your thoughts on the preseason changes. I know ranked is over, but still, good luck out there on the Rift.